Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. And it's the day that you've all been waiting for. College football kicked off, and that means we are in week 0. So we are just around the corner for the start of the NFL season. Now, if you jumped in with us today and you're like, well, I was hoping to talk all things college football, don't worry, we have got you. We actually did 2 full preview breakdown episodes, maybe even 3 leading up to it. So if you missed any of those, you can go on YouTube or listen to any of our podcasts that were previously recorded, and you get your full dose of college football because we've already got our first upset of the year as we're recording this today on Saturday. So incredible way to kick off the college football year. But today, the W Sports Podcast, we are going to break down the entire NFL season with predictions, thoughts, ideas, who's going to be the first coach fired. All those things are happening. Whew, that's a lot to be thinking through, Tubby. Are you ready for the show?
A lot. I'm ready. I've been geared up, ready to go for this season.
Yeah, I have no doubt. Since draft season ended, this is Tubby's like, I'm ready. Let's go. So he's been locked in and ready to go. And maybe you're one of our listeners and you're wondering, am I actually ready for football season? And you're telling yourself that you're ready, but here's one thing, Tubby. I got one thing that they can do to know for sure if they're ready for football season. Do you know what it is?
What's that?
They can make sure that they are subscribed to the W Sports Podcast, wherever it is that they consume the podcast, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, maybe it's on YouTube or social media. Make sure you are subscribed to the show so you don't miss each and every week's episodes, because this week and next week, we have 2 regular program scheduled shows that we have done for the last 3+ years. But then September 9th, it all is going to change, and you don't want to miss it. So we're going to have multiple episodes. So just stick with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you don't want to miss it. So make sure you subscribe. That's how you know you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's football season.
It's football season. Now, we do have some of the really bleak preseason games. How much of the preseason have you watched in week 3? I mean,
barely any.
It's bad. But there was a trade that happened randomly, and it wasn't Brandon Ayuk. It was Johan Dotson getting traded. So, I mean, maybe that means McCaffrey is going to be good. I don't know. Maybe just throwing that out there. Maybe McCaffrey is going to become a slot receiver a little bit there for Washington. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do when it comes to this season with the Ayuk thing if he doesn't play.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Now, we do have week 1 starts on September 4th, which I believe is a week from Thursday. Is that right? Something like that? Yeah, a week from Thursday, September 5th, excuse me. So with that being said, is there a week 1 matchup other than maybe I can't choose Chiefs Ravens because I'm a Chiefs fan. Maybe you can't choose Packers Philly in Brazil. Maybe we can't choose those. But is there a game that you're most looking forward to?
I mean, I haven't even really looked at what the matchups are going to be week 1 besides the 2
the 2 big ones I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so here I'm going to throw out a couple, and you tell me, no, that's the one. I'm going to go at Tennessee at Chicago. It's an early kickoff. Going to get to see Caleb Williams in his first official action. Anthony Richardson playing a divisional game against Houston in Indianapolis. Another game right there that you could have 2 really solid quarterbacks with Tua and Trevor Lawrence playing each other. And then you have later in the afternoon, you have Washington at Tampa Bay. So Jaden Daniels getting his shot. But Detroit's getting another primetime game against the Rams. So rematch of a playoff matchup from last week. So those are all some of the key ones right there. Obviously, a lot of rookie quarterbacks. That is kind of the storyline. But any of those that you're really like, that's the one. That's the one I'm making sure is on.
It'll probably be that Lions game. I mean, rematch of the playoffs last year, I think will be great. I think the Tua, versus Jags, T-Law, see if he can get, off to a good start this year and sustain it, unlike last year, where he got off to a good start, wasn't able to sustain.
Yeah. I can tell you one game I'm not looking forward to watching is going to be Dallas at Cleveland. Could care less.
No? You ain't geared up for the Deshaun Watson?
No. Also, oddly enough, when was the last time Deshaun Watson was good?
Yeah, probably 2019.
Just terrible since then. So I don't know why we're still expecting him to be anything else. But it's just around the corner. So today we're going to jump into some of these. Let's just break down the divisions. We're not going to go down super nitty-gritty details, but we are, because we got a lot to get to today in an hour. So We're going to start, and we almost always start in the AFC East. So we're going the opposite side of the country for the NFC West to start it off. We already mentioned the Rams. We got the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Arizona Cardinals. You talk about a division that has a lot of talent. This might be one of those. There's a season where this was a terrible division, then it went into the best division, and I think right now it's a top-heavy one. But, Tubby, give me your quick breakdown of this one.
Yeah, I mean, it should be the 49ers to lose, but there will be some questions. You know, what happens with Brandon Ayuk? Trent Williams hasn't really been practicing this offseason. So there will be some questions for them offensively. I mean, because losing Ayuk would be massive for that team. I mean, Ricky Pearsall, you drafted him. He's hurt right now. So, you know, Juwan Jennings, he's more of the Debo, you know, replacement, not the Ayuk replacement.
Yeah.
I think the Rams, we saw them last year have a sneaky good year when a lot of people expected them to have a down season. And Matthew Stafford's healthy. Kyron Williams is healthy. Cooper Kupp. This team is healthy right now.
Yeah.
I think this is a team that could really push them.
Matt Stafford's a gamer. Like, that dude's going to go out there. Puka, and obviously if he's healthy, he's going into it, he should be okay. And then you do have Cooper Kupp. And they have a lot of talent. This is a lot of skill position players here. Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Cardinals, and Seattle, DK Metcalf, and then obviously Kenneth Walker. Is there a dark horse outside of San Francisco? Maybe that, you know, you think they actually have a shot. Here's the thing. We both know you're going to say Los Angeles Rams. So give me of the other two teams that you're more likely to say.
Okay, so say that one more time.
So we both agree it's going to be San Francisco taking this division. And if there was a second place, it's going to be the Rams, right? Like, I think we're both going to agree. So give me one of the other two teams that's not going to be in the cellar.
I think the Cardinals have a sneaky good year this year.
Okay.
I think that Kyler Murray having a full season, as long as he's healthy, you got James Conner, you got Trey Benson, you bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., you give him a legitimate number one target, you know,
tight end.
Yeah, big tight end with Trey McBride. Michael Wilson had a really solid, you know, rookie year. The offensive line looks like it's better. They really spent a lot on that defensive side in the draft to try to, you know, bolster that. I think they could be a sneaky team. Maybe I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they could give teams a good run for their money when most teams are probably sitting there going, oh, well, it's the Cardinals. Win, but they might give you more of a fight. Yeah.
Well, you got to hope so. Kyler Murray's got to find a groove and stay healthy. That's been his biggest issue, really, since his second year in the league, since COVID. Yeah. He's really just struggled to stay healthy and then not turn the ball over. I don't know. I like what you're saying. I don't like – I mean, by far the worst quarterback in this division is going to be with Seattle. And this is a QB-driven league, so this makes sense. But a lot more excitement for Cardinals this year, especially compared to last year going into it, or even the year before. So let's go ahead and move to the NFC South. We got Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta. You go from a really, really exciting, I think, a potential deep playoff runs with 1 to 2 teams in the West, and then you go to the South. And is there a team here that you think legitimately can have a deep playoff run, or is this kind of a rebuilding division?
I mean, you saw the Bucks. They, you know, had a decent, you know, won a playoff game last year, had a, you know, decent record for the most part. But you got to look at the Falcons and what they've done. If Kirk Cousins, that's, you know, we've seen the last couple of years, this team got substantially better. And then on top of that, you throw in the Matt Judon trade a couple weeks ago, and then the signing of Justin Simmons, that defense got a lot better too. So I think this is a 2-horse race. I think these two teams will, you know, duke it out all season. But I'm going to lean towards the Falcons. As much as I love Baker, I think the Falcons, they have a lot to look at. I mean, quarterback, and it really, a lot of it will depend on what Kirk Cousins we have after a torn Achilles, you know, 30-some years, you know, late 30s. That'll be the question. But, you know, Bijan Robinson, second year, Drake May and Kyle Pitts, they finally have a true quarterback to throw them the football. Could we see the breakout of these two players, you know, kind of shine and be players that we expected? And then, like I said, that defense, the secondary is scary good now. You throwing Justin Simmons in there. And then Matthew Judon, I mean, that was their biggest weakness, was in the draft. They didn't really address the edge rusher. Well, now they do, and go out and get a guy in Matt Judon who's had a really good last couple seasons in New England. This is a team that has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the thing that I'm having a little bit of trouble with, that's not the right word, but just what's the identity for the Falcons? Like, I know what it is for Tampa Bay. It's a very scrappy, like chip on your shoulder, whole just roster. They're always overlooked. I just don't know what it is for Atlanta.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing because you got a whole new system there. So we're past the Arthur Smith era. Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, has been in the top the Sean McVay room for the last 4 or 5 seasons as a quarterback coach. I think we'll see a lot of what they run over with the Rams, which, if that's the case, you've got a great team there, to run that with. I mean, Bijan Robinson, I think we all expect him to be better than Kyren Williams, but look what Kyren Williams was able to do last year. And we saw what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua could do. Can Drake May be that guy? And then Tyler Higbee's had pretty good seasons there, and Kyle Pitts is supposed to be, exponentially better than Tyler Higbee. So there's a chance this offense could really flourish with a new regime and new quarterback in there.
Yeah, just quick note, anybody, I threw me off for a second. You said Drake May. You meant Drake London, but I knew what you meant. I was like, wait, what? I just got lost there. But I'm on board, just in case anyone else was confused. Who has the better quarterback season, the Carolina Panthers or the New Orleans Saints?
I'm going to say the Carolina Panthers. They've got – and it's hard to say, but, I mean, Derek Carr, how much is he really going to play? Is he going to be on the field? Does he keep the job? Yeah, so Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, they, one of those two going to take over. But they were able to at least get Bryce some decent weapons. I mean, Deontay Johnson's better than what they had last year. You get Thielen back. In a couple of weeks, you'll have Jonathan Brooks back there, who I think will be a big, factor for them. I think he's better than any of the running backs that they have on the roster or had last year. And then we'll see what Jatavian Sanders can do. He is a really good receiving tight end. We know he's not going to give you anything as an inline blocker or anything, but we know he's going to show up when it comes, receiving. So at least you give him some weapons that he didn't have last year.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to move on to the NFC North. And did you pick your team in the NFC South to win it? The Falcons?
Yeah, I picked the Falcons.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move to the NFC North. This is your division, W. You're repping the Packers. I'm repping the Chiefs. We got the classic hats on. It must be preview episode here. So we got the Bears with Caleb Williams, and this is a 7-10 team last year who they competitive, and they got the number 1 pick because of that trade, and it has set them up really well. They made a lot of big trades, obviously, at the skill position. So they have that going for them. J.J. McCarthy is out for the whole year. We kind of mentioned that, I think, a couple weeks ago on the other podcast. But Jordan Love signed a new deal. Jared Goff, new deal. I mean, this is a stacked division. Is this the best division in football?
It's definitely up there for sure. I think you could look at maybe the AFC North. You've got some, 3 pretty good teams there, and with the Steelers being on the back end, with the possibility of 4 solid teams depending on what quarterback play they get. But yeah, I think especially in the next couple of years, this could be a very knockout, drag out conference or division, because if Jared Goff keeps on going the way he is, if Jordan Love keeps getting better, if Caleb Williams is anything what most people think he is, and depending on what happens with JJ McCarthy, this division is set for a couple of years, especially in the quarterback market. But yeah, it's going to be I don't know if this year is quite the year we'll see the every team's in it fighting for a spot. I think the Packers Lions are clearly the top 2 teams in this. I'm gonna pick the Lions to win, and it's not because I don't believe in the Packers. It's gonna go based off the schedule. I mean, the Lions schedule's is a lot easier than the Packers. Packers right now have like the third hardest schedule in the NFL. I still think the Packers will make the playoffs, but I think that their route will be a little bit tougher just because of the schedule this year compared to what the Lions will go through. I mean, they're pretty comparable, but I think the Packers is still slightly tougher than the Lions. So I think the Lions will win it, but I'm not counting out the Packers when it comes to the NFC this year.
Yeah, luckily with the Packers, they had the bye week right in the middle of week 10. The Lions got it in
Mhm.
week 5, so you never know if that's going to factor into it with injuries. But I like those two teams to really battle it out. The Lions won last year by 3 games. I don't see that happening this year. I think this is going to come down really to a game maybe, and to see what it looks like. The division record is going to be really, really big in this one. And then you're like, well, okay, can the Bears steal a couple extra games against these teams? Can he go 3-1 instead of 2-2, or 1-3 instead, which is what I would expect him to go to 1-3 against these teams.
Yeah.
But which one do they lose to? So I do like the Lions a lot. I like the style, but also we see this with teams a lot. And my fear for the Lions going into this year is they are the Bills from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything's trending up. Everyone loves them. And then they hit a plateau, and they're good. They are very competitive, but they don't necessarily take the step forward that I think, and what you probably agree to, is that the Packers are taking that step forward this year.
Yeah, I think the defense for the Packers is going to be better than it was last year. We'll see what Hafley brings. He brings more, I think, what these players were used to. The bump coverage, the playing physical, to where when they voice their concerns, they're like, we'd much rather play a physical brand of defense, not this zone defense that you have us playing. And so hopefully that will help them out a lot, I think. But youth wise, this team is super young, and they should, if they can, just build on what they did last year. Maybe we see something like what happened a couple of years ago with the Bengals, where they build upon a better year, and then the next year shock people and make a run at the Super Bowl or something.
Well, so who you picked? The Lions. I think that's a good pick. All right, let's go ahead, and then in that case, we're going to move to NFC East. I do have a quick question for all of our Bear fans out there. Does Caleb Williams break all the Bears franchise records for quarterbacks this year? 4,000 yards passing, most games or passing touchdowns. I think is 30 is the number, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, he definitely should. I mean,
good.
It's not, they're not lofty numbers. They're definitely not that high numbers to break, but those offensive weapons he has, it should be pretty easy to do. I think this is a team with the schedule. If Caleb Williams is anything like we think he is, if he's got to be better than what Justin Fields was last year, they could maybe sneak their way into a final wild card spot, just because that defense is good. That defense last year finished the season as a top 10 defense. It's the same defense. They've added a few more pieces to it to get better. This defense is definitely going to hold you in games. If Caleb Williams, like you said, is just marginally better than what Justin Fields was, this team has a chance to potentially sneak in that final wild card spot.
Well, if you look at a division with drama, ton of drama going into it. It is the NFC East. Go figure. It has Dallas Cowboys in it, who obviously have lots of contract drama with multiple players right now, with not a whole lot of movement. They had the Philadelphia Eagles, who had an absolute collapse last year in the last 2 months. We have the Giants, who are desperate for a quarterback, have no quarterback. They have Malik Neighbors, and I think that's going to go a long way, but they don't have a lot of anything else. And then you have Washington, who is bringing in a brand new rookie quarterback again, who has some similarities, people remembering, to another quarterback that was great with RG3, who unfortunately got hurt. I don't see that necessarily for Jaden Daniels, but talk about drama. This is that drama-filled division already, and we haven't even started this thing.
No. I mean, you forgot about the whole Saquon Barkley, Tiki Barber, feud now after the. But yeah, this is a division where if you pick. You can't pick the Cowboys to win because they won last year. There hasn't been a repeat, champion in 19 seasons. So I mean, I think now the easy answer is the Eagles. But I whether outside of the history or whatever, I think the Eagles gotten better this year.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring in Saquon Barkley, then you turn around and you trade for Jahan Dotson, inter conference, division trade, which doesn't happen all the time in football.
Mm-hmm.
And you address the defensive side, especially in the draft when it comes to the corner position that you desperately needed, because those corners last year just got absolutely mauled and beat up. But you bring in new systems, defense coordinator wise and offensive coordinator. I think this team will get back on the right foot. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I think Jalen Hurts will have a bounce back season. It's the interesting thing will be the center position. Losing Jason Kelce, arguably the leader of that team and the driving force of that team. So where do they go from there? Who's going to be that vocal leader in the locker room now?
Yeah, you'd hope it would be Jalen Hurts. Like, he just naturally kind of carries that when he walks into a locker room. But
yeah,
and you kind of need it to be a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I'm not going to pick Dallas to win this one. There's too much drama this year with this team. So go ahead, give me Philadelphia. And I do expect it to be close. 11 wins probably wins this division this year versus what it was last year. I think 12. But yeah, just give that to me. I think they were second last year in point differential. Dallas was at a plus 194. I mean, they were scoring points like crazy. We haven't got to the team who's number one yet. We talked the top two of the top three with San Francisco and Dallas. But there's no team in the AFC that we're going to get to here in a minute that might surprise people that didn't realize, because the defense was so stinking good. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead. You got to make our picks for the playoffs in the NFC, if you're good with that, since we just broke it down, and then we're going to move on to the AFC after that. But
yeah.
All right. So that said, who you got?
So obviously you got the division winners. I picked the Falcons, the Lions, the Eagles, and the 49ers. I think Packers, Cowboys. And then that final spot is where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Because I think it'll be the Rams. I think it'll be a lot of what we saw last year, just maybe interchange one team or two. But I like I said, I think there's that sneaky chance that the Bears, with that schedule that they have, if Caleb Williams, like I said, is just even marginally better than what Justin Fields was last year, with that defense, with those offensive weapons that they have, this team has a chance to potentially win 10 games and sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I will say the Rams are going to start off the year with a pretty tough schedule at Detroit, at Arizona versus San Francisco, at Chicago versus Green Bay, then against the Raiders, who are not great, but it's still Max Crosby. You're going to have to deal with that before it softens up a little bit. So if you get behind the ball pretty quick, that they can find themselves having to work their way back from it, which they did last year.
Yeah,
that out. But so
yeah, I'm going to pick the Rams. I trust Matthew Stafford and them more, but like I said, I think the team to watch is the Bears. I think the Bears are a team to watch out for. I think you could potentially throw the Buccaneers in there. I just have a lot of concerns about the defense. You lost some of the guys on defense. You got some older guys there. Traded a couple. You traded your top corner, so now you have some questions in the defense. I just don't know if the defense will be good enough to win. And I don't think the division, like last year, it was clear cut that division was bad. This year, at least you got a potentially solid, pretty decent team in the Falcons there. And it muddies things a little bit more for me.
Yeah. I feel like I would go San Francisco, give me Tampa Bay, Detroit, and then the Eagles. And then that leaves 3 wild cards. I love the Packers. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bears. And that leaves 1 left. And I'm going to be the guy that says, I just don't know, since I don't know the identity for the Falcons yet, I just can't put it. Maybe I'll be wrong. So give me the Cowboys as the last team that makes it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. The interesting thing with the Cowboys will be how things play out with this whole situation. I mean, right now, CeeDee Lamb, we don't know if he's going to play. Dak Prescott's wanting a new contract. Micah Parsons is wanting a new contract. And then you've got all the situation, now DaRon Bland's out 6 to 8 weeks. You got Trayvon Diggs coming back, but he's coming back from an ACL injury. Mike McCarthy, you got a whole new defensive coordinator. There's a lot of, moving pieces there in Dallas where, if Dallas had a hiccup this year, I wouldn't be surprised because the drama's there. It's definitely a Dallas, type of situation right now.
Yeah. Right there with you. I'm also right here in the sun, and I can't seem to find a space out of it. It's so annoying. It's because we're recording at an off time, and I'm right by this stupid window. Anyway, so if you're listening to the podcast, you're like, what is going on? That's why. So I think that's a lot of unstable ground. If the Dallas doesn't make it, I think if all those pieces do play, they should be fine to win 9-10 games, and they sneak in. If not, I think that last position is going to be a little bit up there. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the AFC West, a team that only won 11 games last year, had no wide receivers, won the Super Bowl. So this has got Kansas City, Las Vegas, who named a starting quarterback. Shoot, who did they just choose? It wasn't Aiden O'Connell.
Gardner Minshew
fits this team pretty well. I like it. Denver Broncos, they got their guy in Bo Nix, who they think is the second coming of Dak Prescott. And then, of course, the Chargers rebuilding from the inside out with Jim Harbaugh. So, Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to do this again. I used to do this all the time. I'm going to do it again. All right. So, Tubby, tell me why it's not tell me a reason why the Chiefs don't win this division.
Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. That's the only reason. That's the only way they don't win this division, I don't think. I mean, the Chargers, this whole situation, it's ugly. I mean, I feel bad for Justin Herbert. Yeah, at least for you have a solid offensive line. You should have a solid offensive line to protect you. You have no run game, really to speak about. Your wide receivers, Ladd McConkey, potentially you're being your top
Quentin
guy.
Johnson.
And no, we ain't talking about Quentin Johnson. Anyone that's bringing up Quentin Johnson right now, y'all just need to stop. Go watch film. Go watch the dude. Yeah, he's a big dude, and he can make some good, miraculous catches. But 9 times out of 10, that guy's gonna brick hands it and not gonna be able to catch the ball. It took him up until like week 11, week 12 to have more than 2 catches and 20 yards in a single game, and that was a good portion with. Mike Williams was out pretty much the whole season, and Keenan Allen was beat up. Yeah. So, don't get me started with Quentin Johnson. This team is going to be ugly, but I expect Harbaugh to get things figured out. The defense will, find its way. He'll find a way to build a good defense because that's what he does. The offense line will be good. The thing for them is going to be the question is. Not really a question. I think a player to watch is Kamani Vidal, running back from Troy, rookie. I think he's the guy that could potentially sneak in and end up being that running back for them. But, we'll see what happens with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is going to get hurt. What are we talking about? Gus Edwards is going to average 3.8 per carry. Done.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be. But, okay, so last year, 2 teams won 8 games, which is crazy that the Broncos won 8 games last year. The Broncos, is Bo Nix the next Dak Prescott?
I mean, probably not. I don't know.
It's just in the numbers.
It's just kind of – I looked at Dak, like that Bo Nix at being more of a backup quarterback. I just don't know if he – I don't know. It'll be different maybe – they'll be able to run that similar offense to what they had with Drew Brees, where he doesn't have to have the super strong arm and the quick get it out of your hand passes. And if that's the case, he has a potential to be, a decent quarterback. I don't know about, if he'll ever be on the level of Dak Prescott. He's got decent legs or whatever, but I'm just not completely sold on Bo Nix. And yeah, he had a good, preseason, but like we've said before, he's playing against a lot of backups and playing against third string guys. He should be good because he was a first round pick, so he should be able to beat up on these guys. It'll be, can he beat up on the ones of other teams against good defenses? I just don't know if he can. I'm not completely sold on him as a NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not either at this point. I think like what you said, the Sean Payton-ness to it might actually play it off differently. I look at this division. There's one playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So
yeah, I mean, maybe the Raiders, if Gardner Minshew can, bring back the magic he had last year with the Colts, maybe they could, if some of these teams falter, because I mean, there's a lot of questions, especially out east.
Yeah,
we'll
see
what happens there. So, I think it's a one playoff team in this division. But if you're going to make me pick another one, I would probably maybe slightly lean towards the Raiders, just because I think Gardner Minshew out of them at least is the most stable with what the supporting cast he has around him.
For sure. Devontae Adams. Oh, that one's rough.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, darn.
All right. Well, let's move over to the AFC South. This division used to be, I think, there's a season where this was just dominated by the best running backs in the game.
Yeah.
And now this is a different era where there's a lot of new quarterbacks just across the board. CJ Stroud won the division last year, took a step back with Trevor Lawrence. Anthony Richardson played 3+ games and then got hurt. And then obviously Will Levis, I don't think he's going to even be the quarterback by the end of the year because new regime. So break down this division. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think it's the Texans. Them and the Packers definitely way overachieved last year. I think the Texans got better, just like the Packers did. They got better on the defensive side. They got, you bring in Stephon Diggs, you bring in Joe Mixon, you bring in, some solid, other options, especially in that backfield. Running back wise, Joe Mixon is an upgrade over Devin Singletary. Stephon Diggs is the best number 3 wide receiver in the NFL. You bring Dalton Schultz back, and D'Amico Ryans has a second year as a head coach. This is a team that is up and coming. I expect big things again from CJ Stroud. Will he put up quite the numbers he did last year? I don't know, just because those are some pretty impressive numbers for a rookie season. But he has the weapons to absolutely do it. And you got a pretty, soft schedule and a pretty soft division. So I think there's a very good chance. I'm holding out reserves that maybe Trevor Lawrence will be something that we expected. It just even a little bit. But I'm not on the Trevor Lawrence bus. I last year I was. This year I'm being more reserved, because last year he did not prove anything to me that I looked at and went, yeah, that guy is a legitimate starting quarterback every single week in the NFL. He's a good, piece if you need it. It's going to be hard to upgrade, just in the market, or, over him. But I think there's some questions there. I'm not, me, I'm not Anthony Richardson or Will Levis fan, so I think both these teams are going to have, pretty bad seasons. I think Jonathan Taylor will help keep the Colts afloat a little bit, but that Titan situation, that's messy.
Yeah, that one is pretty bad. The Colts, I think, a lot of talent though on that team. A lot of skills on the offensive side, so I do like that. Even I want to still be on the Trevor Lawrence bandwagon. He's 1 for 3. He's 1 for 3 so far. And if you go back to college, was he a hit every single year, or was it,
really freshman, sophomore year?
Yeah. So I feel that he doesn't always take these big giant leaps. I think you get who he is pretty quick. And so that's my fear, is that as much as I want to, I think we may know who he is, which isn't bad. It makes me think of a Derek Carr. Derek Carr has had a long, great career, and he's a good career. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a stretch, but it's not bad.
No, I agree with that.
So
I think that's a good comparison, honestly.
So you got Texans. I'm going to also pick the Texans. It's just a lot on the offensive side. I'm trying to think through who I would compare it to, growing up, watching, but
greatest show on turf, just maybe not quite as much with Joe Mixon. He doesn't really, stack up to the Marshall Faulk. But wide receiver wise, I don't know if we've seen a 1 to 3 punch. And then you throw in John Mechie, who I think a lot of people are expecting to have, we're hoping would have a bounce back season after the the cancer situation, but
Mm-hmm.
you throw him in there, fourth, fifth wide receiver, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. I mean, there's a lot of targets there that this offense is. It's going to be tough to slow down.
Yeah,
and that defense, I think, will be better.
Yeah, and so for the Texans to have a really successful year, we don't just do again what we did last year, but they need to take this division, which has some question marks, and they need to dominate it enough to where they put themselves in the position for a top overall seed. And I think that they have the potential to do that if it's a softer schedule and they take care of business. You do that, you're in a much better position. So
yeah, I agree.
Let's move on. We got the AFC North, which is, you mentioned this earlier, maybe one of the toughest divisions in football for our whole lifetime. Here we are again, another year where every single team last year finished above 500, which is insane. But they also had the number one team in point differentials with Baltimore Ravens, who only gave up 280 points. Let me ask you this. How many teams gave up under 300 points or fewer last year?
Ooh. 1?
3.
3?
Of those 3, how many played in the Super Bowl?
1. No, I keep on forgetting the Chiefs had such a great defense.
I know, and that's the thing. And I don't know that the Chiefs defense is as good this year. I do think that there are some people who are taking steps forward, but we're past the Chiefs now. They're going to win the division. So, but then the 49ers and the Chiefs all were in the 290s. But the 49ers Chiefs were both in the 290s. Baltimore's at 280, which is just stupid. And if they don't shoot themselves in the foot like Baltimore has done in the past, it continues to do in the playoffs, there's a good chance that they could have been, playing Super Bowl Sunday. But Cleveland 11-6. Honestly, when I look at Cleveland, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking away the mic from you for a second. This is the team that I'm so frustrated with. And I look at anybody on that team, like Amari Cooper, Njoku, like all these people who had good fantasy seasons last year, run away. Run away, because guess who's not playing quarterback anymore? Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was throwing that ball 54 times a game. So, there was plenty of targets to go around. It was awesome for fantasy football, and they ended up winning. I don't see them getting 11 wins again this year. I see this team look under 500.
Yeah, no, if Deshaun Watson is the quarterback, absolutely. They were dumb for not bringing back Joe Flacco. They went out and signed Jameis Winston instead, which makes no sense to me. Why would you not bring back Joe Flacco after what he did for you last year? Whenever your star quarterback goes down, I don't know. I agree. I think this team has a lot of talent on the roster, but someone tried to say, "Oh, well, Deshaun Watson wasn't that bad at the beginning of the year." I'm like, Deshaun Watson was not good.
Bad.
Deshaun Watson has not been good for a while. So, this team, I think, will very much underachieve. I think the Ravens win this division. Last year, I was big gung-ho on Joe Burrow and them, and now I'm not saying Joe Burrow is a bad player. I love Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a fantastic quarterback, but now we're starting to get into the situation where we're looking at him going, well, is he going to stay on the field? ACL, your rookie year, your appendix, calf, wrist injury, where this wrist injury thing kind of sounds scary to me because they're like, oh, yeah, this isn't something that typically happens to, quarterbacks. So we're not quite sure, what the situation will be. Now you got Ja'Marr Chase saying, I ain't going to play unless I get a contract. So now if Ja'Marr Chase doesn't play, you take Joe Mixon out of that, that mix, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, taking over. T. Higgins, how much is he really bought into this right now with the whole offseason? I think I'm a little worried about them this year a lot more than I was last year, just because there's a lot of questions. And then you have a whole new offensive scheme with, Callahan leaving and going and taking the job in Tennessee.
Yeah. And I look at this Joe Burrow. We talk about Trevor Lawrence and stuff like that. Like, has he reached where he is at? And Joe Burrow, I think there's still a lot of potential. He's been so good at different times. But if you look at his numbers since that epic year in 21, he has taken steps down each year. And even last year, he did play 10 games. He was injured he didn't get to play 10 full games, but in the games he did play, his completion percentage was down. His average yards per attempt was his career lowest, and his touchdowns was back to similar rookie year levels. It was just one of those things that you look at, I'm like, there's too much talent for it to be connecting, and it wasn't connecting, and he was hurt and all this other stuff. So I think what you said is a spot on. Is the injury designation kind of where we're at with him?
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, it definitely does, because, we've talked about it, the lack of quarterback talent, top tier quarterback talent in the NFL. And that was one of those guys that we consistently throw up there. And now if he's in that situation where it's year in, year out, we're going, well, how many games do we get him for?
Yeah.
It starts to, muddy things up, especially for that team. And then on top of that, I don't know if Jake Browning's on that team or not, but I hadn't seen him all off season, and Logan Woodside has been the quarterback, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. There's some questions there with them, especially the Joe Burrow of it all and the Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, is Ja'Marr Chase really going to hold out and not play this year? Or is it, just that typical ploy going, oh, I won't play. Okay, now pay me, because the numbers he's asking for are astronomical for a wide receiver. He's asking for 160 over 4 years. He's asking for $40 million a year with 120 guaranteed. I mean, the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL right now was around 33, 34 million. So he's asking for a considerable pay bump compared to the next top guy.
Yeah, that's insane. And I do think he's really good, and I think he's been dealt a tougher hand to play the game, the card deck, or whatever you want to say, the poker hand. Is he worth that?
No.
Because, I mean, one of my biggest calling cards for great wide receivers, it's not just putting up good, yards, receptions. It's touchdowns. Touchdowns. You know how many touchdowns he had last year?
3?
Well, I mean, thank goodness not 3. He had 7.
7, okay. So
the year before he had 9, and then Joe Burrow's first year, a great year, not first year, his first year, he had 13. So part of last year, I think he would have had, give him 10 last year if Joe Burrow plays the whole season. But, you got to get in the end zone. You put up numbers at 15, 17, those Randy Moss numbers, those T.O. at peak numbers, okay, Jerry Rice, okay. Now we can talk these insane numbers, but you got to score touchdowns. That's what the game comes down to.
And there's also injury questions for him, too. I mean, he's been injured throughout his career, and there may be times, where he's injured and he plays, but when he's injured and he plays, he typically doesn't show up. And it's usually the T. Higgins show, because Ja'Marr Chase isn't healthy. He's out there, but he's not healthy. And so there's injury questions there for him also, along with Joe Burrow.
Looking at the Steelers, they've never finished below 500 with Mike Tomlin. Do they get at least 9 wins this year? Dude, their schedule is cake on the first half.
Yeah, it kind of depends on who they pick, I think, at quarterback. Do they take Justin Fields? Do they take Russell Wilson? I think if they pick Russell Wilson, I think they will. I think Russell Wilson got dealt a terrible hand in Denver. Last year, he played good for the first, 6-7 weeks, and then they wanted him to sit so he didn't get hurt, or they wanted him to take, something out of his contract, saying if he got hurt, his contract wasn't guaranteed. And then after that, they just went on a nosedive, because they went on like a 5-game win streak where they went and beat, some good teams. They beat the Bills in Buffalo, and then it was just like kind of the wheels just fell off of it. I still think that he has something to prove and is a much better quarterback than what they had last year. I'm not sold on Justin Fields being a starting quarterback. I think at least he needs to sit. I saw a lot of, the same things this offseason, during preseason, that I've seen from Justin Fields his whole career, where he can't read the field fast enough and grabs the ball and just runs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he's done. He's done that really well, I will say, at a very great level.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and do a prediction for the Steelers, for any Steelers fan or any football fan. By week 9 is their bye week. They're going to probably be like 6-2. And people are going to be saying Super Bowl contender or whatever it is, assuming that the quarterback play is good, right? Not great, but just good. And then they will go on a bye week. And then after the bye week, They play at Washington, and then they play what is it? They will play all 6 of their division games are in the last 7 weeks.
Oh,
And the game that's not, in the last 8 weeks, and the one that's not, the 2 games that are not division games, Chiefs, Eagles.
Oh,
so I'm saying this now. You're going to look at this team and be like, oh, this is a Super Bowl. This is a great, and then they're going to have to get through the hardest part of the season and the toughest part of it. This is 2 completely different schedules. The front half of the schedule is the Giants, the Jets, the Raiders, the Cowboys, Colts, Chargers, Denver, and Atlanta. Like, come on now. Like, you couldn't have 2 polar opposites. This is really bleak.
Yeah, NFL did them no favors.
They go 3-3 into those division games. They get 9 wins. There it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they get 9.
Yeah, I mean, they very well could. I mean, we're not expecting a whole lot from the Browns, so they could definitely win those 2 games. And, they'll play the Ravens tough no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get one of those. So,
yeah, there you go.
Like
9.
That's not anyone's favorite. So,
no.
All right, did you pick the Ravens to win this division?
Yeah, it's the Ravens.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. All right, let's move on to the AFC East, which has had a changing of the guard over the last couple of years, which has been nice. It was the Patriots for too long. And now it's Buffalo, Miami tied last year for the division lead, and then the tiebreaker went to Buffalo. And then the cost, I think, Miami a deeper playoff run because they had to go play Kansas City in negative 80-degree weather. But then you have the New York Jets, who somehow won 7 games last year because been I would say a good defense. That got tired, but they have Aaron Rodgers supposedly,
yeah,
and then the Patriots, who may have Drake May at some point. So break down the division.
Yeah, this is the division. I think there's a lot of questions with every single team. You look at the Buffalo Bills and you go, who's he throw the football to? Outside of James Cook and Dalton Knox and Kincaid, that's 2 tight ends and a running back. Who's the wide receiver? Is Keon Coleman the guy that you spent the second pick and the third, second round on? Is it does Khalil Shakir finally show up? I don't think any of us are counting on Curtis Samuel to be the guy, but there's a lot of questions on that side. Then the defensive side, Matt Milano's already hurt. They've had trouble with generating pass rush. The team, you lose 2 starting safeties, and Poyer and Micah Hyde. There's some questions there with that team where I think a lot of people expect them to be good just because you have Josh Allen in. I think James Cook's going to have a great year, but there's also a lot of questions outside of that. How much we're going to be back to the same what we see every year, where Josh Allen's having to do so much to compensate for other things. The Dolphins, that defense, can it be anything? You go out, you get rid of Vic Fangio leaves, your 2 starting edge rushers ended the season on the IL, torn ACL, Achilles. You lose Christian Wilkins in the middle. You lose your starting linebacker in Javon Baker. Xavier Howard's not there no more. Jalen Ramsey's still there, but then you got questions outside of who's the other corner. Can Javon Holland stay on the field? This defense was not great last year. You have an explosive offense. I mean, offense, yeah, you can score with anyone, but you have no defense. Jets, it's Aaron Rodgers. What Aaron Rodgers do we get? Is it a good Aaron Rodgers? It just has to be a good Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't have to be a great Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't have to be the Aaron Rodgers, from 2018, 19, whatever. It just has to be a solid Aaron Rodgers. But what do we get from him? He hasn't played in over a year. He's coming off an Achilles injury. He's 40 years old. He's already having some issue with now his opposite calf. They showed him on the sideline limping and rubbing down that calf. So I don't know if it's a strained calf muscle. We know where that leads to. He's dealt with calf issues his whole career. Ends up tearing his Achilles last year, and that offensive line, it's remade, but you're relying on Tyron Smith to stay healthy, which he hasn't done in the last 7 years in the NFL. Morgan Moses, you signed him to a big contract, away from the Ravens, and you're hoping Elijah Vera Tucker can stay on the field. So there's some questions there. Even if Rodgers is on the field, can that offensive line hold up and give the guy time to throw?
Well, and here's the biggest problem. Week 3 versus the Jets played the Patriots at home.
Mm-hmm.
Guess where at home is? That stupid turf. That
Yep.
field that he tore his ACL. So that's just the question. You're gonna have to stay healthy. He's gonna have to stay healthy enough from a Bosa week 1 against the 49ers. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a fun matchup. I just don't see the Jets. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers can't stay healthy all year long. Too many things. Give me Miami only because this to me is Miami is the Peyton Manning Colts.
Yeah,
when they didn't have a defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Dolphins win, and a big portion of that is because the Bills schedule they're like a 5-game stretch where they're playing the Chiefs, the Lions, the Eagles, the Rams, and there's another couple, supposed to be good teams towards the middle of the back end of that schedule where, we'll kind of know what they are, but if there's some, shakiness there, I think the Dolphins schedule, it's not easy either. The Jets have the easiest schedule out of the 3, but are we really banking on a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles injury, already kind of nursing some other type of calf injury they're not letting, out there with an injury-prone offensive line, and your first couple games of the season you're playing against some good defenses that can put some pressure on your 40-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, well, I agree. So pick your playoff teams.
So
the AFC.
No, the Chiefs won't make it.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, the Ravens, the Texans, the Dolphins. I think the Bills will sneak in.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bengals will sneak in also. And I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I think they'll.
Dude, why'd you gotta go with it? Literally, I thought we weren't going to have that. I was going to have it, and then you chose the literal same one. I think this makes sense, though.
I was between them and potentially the Jets, but I don't know if Rodgers can stay healthy. And there's still, maybe the chance that we could see the Steelers sneak in, but I don't know. I think that if I'm going off of it just based off of what I think, quarterback play and full team, I think Trevor Lawrence and that team are, a little bit. Yeah. Got the edge.
I'm over. I'm like, I thought for sure it wouldn't be him, but that's what I think it is, and that's the problem with the AFC right now is that it is very top heavy, and right now it's top 2 heavy. So transitioning, we're going to go now into our conference championship weeks before we do Super Bowl picks, but I'll go ahead and jump out there and say, because I said it's only 2 teams top heavy. We got Chiefs, Baltimore. That's who I got.
It should be. Yeah, I'm gonna go Chiefs and Texans. I think
Texans. There we go.
I just don't ever trust Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. And when it comes to it, I mean, yeah, you beat up on the Texans last year, but that's CJ Stroud's rookie year. That's DeMeco Ryans' first season as a head coach. I think this team is going to be a lot better this year than it was last year. And they were good last year, and they got hot at the end of the season, but this offense is going to be tough to stop. I think that defense got better. I think this team is on the ascent, and I think we can see a good matchup between them and the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the NFC then. NFC Championship game. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Wow. Didn't expect that.
And the Packers.
What a homer!
It is absolutely is part of a part.
Is
of
it really?
Homer pick? No. I think that the tough schedule that they play this year is going to strengthen them for when it comes to the playoffs. You were 1 drive away from beating the 49ers in that first round of in the second round of the playoffs. They were that close when they weren't even projected to be in the playoffs. I think the defense takes a step forward. I think we see Jordan Love, this young offense, take a step forward. I think they're going to be dangerous, and I think the Eagles are going to be closer to what we saw Super Bowl year. Maybe not quite the defensive side as good, but I think the offense is going to be a much better offense than they were last year. I wanted to potentially pick the Lions, in Packers, but I don't know if there's a way that could line up. Yeah. But I'm gonna go Packers Eagles, I think we're seeing the rise of two young teams in the Texans and the Packers who absolutely, overachieved last year and won playoff games when no one expected them to win playoff games or even be in the playoffs, let alone. And both these teams got better in the offseason and now are going to take that step forward. And maybe we'll finally see someone challenge the Chiefs.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I'm going to pick San Francisco until Brock Purdy starts throwing those picks like I always thought he would. But the problem is he has so many weapons on offense. It's hard to. Now, they have had a lot of distractions this year. Mm-hmm. But give me the 49ers and the Lions. I did say, I feel like they could be on that plateau. Mm-hmm. But until I see it for sure that they can't, I hope this is the year that they push through that plateau and they get to the next level. But I would say if there was a third team, it was going to be the Packers. If I have a 3-team.
Yeah, can we do it somehow do a round robin?
It's the NHL All-Star Weekend. That's what we're going to do.
Right?
Whoever gets the most first downs wins.
Yeah.
Something stupid like that.
We don't need to score. We just need to get first downs.
Yeah. All right. Well, so now we're gonna keep receipts on this. Obviously, we do every year. Who you got in the Super Bowl?
I have a rematch of Chiefs Eagles. As much as I want to pick the Packers, I still think that they're young. I think that they're going to have some, hiccups. It's hard for me not to pick the Chiefs just because until someone can beat them, mm-hmm. they're going to be there. We're seeing the New England Patriots all over again. Such a dominant team that Patrick Mahomes is the difference maker with a bad wide receiver group that he had last year. Yeah, they relied a lot on the defense, but now Marquise Brown can get healthy. He's a great take the top off the field, type of guy. We'll see, what happens with Xavier Worthy. Can he kind of translate, be somewhat like that? Rashee Rice will be back. Offensive line, you got pretty much everything back from last year. Defense, you did lose your corner there to the Titans, but I still think that they had guys in place to take over. Maybe not quite as good. Maybe defense may be a little bit, not as good as it was last year, but they're still going to be dominant.
Yeah. Everything in me says don't pick the Chiefs, man. Back to back has never happened. Didn't even happen for the Patriots. But what's different about this is they did get better. They did the work in the offseason to do it. And there was a very little preseason I watched, but I did watch the drive Patrick Mahomes, Xavier Worthy, and Xavier Worthy caught the ball. And I was like, MVS is dropping that sucker. Every time he's going to drop it, but he caught it. And I don't know. I do feel like, barring any terrible, horrific injury, this team should have everything that they need to keep going. So the hardest part is staying healthy and staying hungry, because the apathy or the long drawn out year again has got to be hard. Every year they're in the AFC Championship game. That's a long season. And after a while, maybe that feels dull. And maybe the wins that they normally used to feel excited about feel dull because the expectation is the Super Bowl. So if you lose focus for just a minute, you could lose it all. And that team last year, the Bills played perfect against the Chiefs, except they were wide right again. Yeah. And they lost. And the Baltimore could have put the ball in the end zone. Instead, they put the ball on the ground because the Chiefs made the right play at the right time. Until they're done, I'm picking the Chiefs. And then I'm going to give me the Lions. Give me the Lions. Brock Purdy's going to throw the picks because he's not going to be throwing deep against secondary that was on the street 2 weeks ago that the Lions are just trying to piece together. The Lions address that issue. They're going to run the ball effectively. Jared Goff just got paid. They're going to go for it on 4th and 1. They're going to win the game.
Heck, I wouldn't mind seeing that matchup. I think it would be fun.
Yeah, everybody in America would be like, let's go Detroit. Nobody besides Kansas City would be saying, go Chiefs.
I definitely would not root for the Lions because I am a Packers fan, but it would be fun to see.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so pick your Super Bowl winner.
It's hard not to pick Chiefs. It's the Chiefs until someone beats them. And, history doesn't get made until someone makes it.
This is true.
Here it is. Here's the chance to be the first team ever in the NFL to three-peat. I think they have the team to do it. I don't trust the 49ers. I don't know. I think the Eagles will be better, but I don't know if they're as good as even they were, the year they made it to the Super Bowl. I think the NFC, it's right for someone new, like the Packers or the Lions, to come in and take it. We'll see if one of those teams can come in and snatch it and, bring something different. But it's just, I don't know if there's another team that can compete. And the fact that they've been there and they've done it twice in the last 2 years and 3 in the last 5 years, it just makes it, hard to pick against them.
Yeah, I'm same thing for the same reason that you said. I can't do it against. We tried to do this with the Patriots for so long, and we said they're done, and they kept going. And you got to stay healthy, you got to stay hungry, you got to stay focused. And Andy Reid's looking like the Bill Belichick of this time period in history, and it's just special.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, so that's all the cool moments. That's all the cool things about the season. Let's talk about who's the first coach to get fired. I want to know, because this is always a fun, random thing that we talk about. And sometimes we don't even come close because randomly someone gets canned in week 3. But who do you got?
Yeah, I think the easy answer will be Dennis Allen, the Saints head coach. I think that's the easy answer. I'm going to go with the guy that I hope this doesn't happen, because if it does, that means they're having a bad year. And it's Todd Bowles for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of excitement. I know that there was questions, not last year, but the year before, that, whether or not he would, be the successor to Bruce Arians. But, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't know. I think this defense is considerably worse than it was last year, and it's going to make it a lot tougher for Baker and this team.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Brian Dabo.
Yeah. Brian, I think, that's a good pick.
Hold on, let me look at
Dable.
There is an L. Okay. I'm getting Dabo and Dable here. So I'm picking him only because they don't have anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're going to find themselves. And we love the hire. I remember when it happened, we were like, I love it. This is a great hire. I think Joseph, when he was on the podcast, he wanted the Bears to go get it. And they just didn't. And Danny Dimes has been terrible. In the preseason, he's been terrible. They don't have hardly any skill position. We talked about them earlier in the breakdown, and I think the cards are going to stack against him pretty high to where they're just going to be done. And they're going to say, you know what? We're probably going to have like a first top 3 pick, and then we're going to go ahead. We're going to want our own guy and new. Yeah, and that's what I got.
I think another interesting one will be Robert Saleh, the Jets, just because
if it's a disaster,
Yeah, if Rodgers comes out and he's nothing like the Rodgers we expect, or not expecting, they hope for, he's going to get fired real quick. And there's a good chance that whole regime, because I don't think that there's any way they're going to let Nathaniel Hackett be the interim head coach.
Shouldn't.
No.
Yeah. All right. So who do you got for MVP this year?
This one, it's tough. It really is, because, you want to – all the big names, you're like, will they give it to Patrick Mahomes? Probably not, because, he's winning so much. We saw that happen with Tom Brady and, all that. I don't think Josh Allen can do it. So I think there's like a couple of these names, smaller guys, up-and-comer guys. I think you throw Love up there, Lamar, maybe Stroud. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. I think that, I think the offense will be much better this year. They've got the offensive weapons. And he's going to have a lot of rushing touchdowns. Sorry, Saquon, because he's going to snipe you.
Well, you just paid him enough money. You better not be doing the tush push without Kelsey in there to move the ball quick enough.
They are. You know they are.
They got to move away from it. Come on. No, I'm on the opposite. I think he's going to lose some of those rushing touchdowns. I think Josh Allen will too, but just because of that, like Jason Kelsey, he got the ball back so fast and he was so good. I think that chemistry is going to be different. So I could be wrong. We'll see. I'm going to go with CJ Stroud. I think if the Texans do what they do and they make a play, they run through the division and they make a play for that top seed in the AFC, it's going to be hard for them not to say. I mean, because he's going to have to. I mean, he's going to have he should have the numbers. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Second year, and then the Panthers are there looking like, what are we doing? What are we doing? We got Caleb
But-
Williams winning Rookie of the Year. We got C.J. Stroud over here. He's winning MVP. Oh, man.
Oh gosh, man, that happens. There has to be a petition. I mean, there probably should already be one, but a petition for David Tepper to be forced to sell that team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like sell, and then the look on Bryce Young's career.
Yeah.
not
Oh
on
yeah.
Star.
No, not definitely not in favor for him for the foreseeable future if that happens.
Yeah. All right. So, what's your bold take for this year?
A bold take. Man, I've thought about this one, and it's hard for me to really come up with anything, substantial. But I think that Kyler Murray finally shows why he was taken number one. I think that with the new coaching that they had last year, they were in a lot of games when they shouldn't have been with Josh Dobbs and these guys. But now you bring in a kid like Marvin Harrison Jr. As great as DeAndre Hopkins was, he was towards the back end of his career. We're going to see him have a legitimate target that he probably hasn't seen since CeeDee Lamb at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's two teams that could be surprising this year in that NFC, and it's the Bears and the Cardinals potentially push for a playoff spot because the NFC is weaker. But I think we're finally going to see Kyler Murray take that step and then set themselves up for the future of potentially the next year or so, sneaking into the playoffs.
I like that. It's a good build take. Here's mine. They just got paid 3 years, I think $75 million. I can't remember if that's exactly what it was. Something like that. I think Kirk Cousins doesn't finish the year as a starter for the Falcons.
Oh,
That's my bold take, is that either he just didn't get the chemistry right, or they're just stumbling a little bit, and they're like, you know what? We drafted him, put in Michael, put in Penix. We want to see what he can do. That's what I see. And for the record, for this to happen, they really got to stumble because the end of this schedule is Chargers, Vikings, which at Vikings, he wants to play in that one. But then Raiders, Giants, Washington, Carolina. That is an easy schedule to end the year. So they're going to have to stumble, and they're going to have to hold them out of that at Vikings game. Bold. We said bold.
Bold. Yeah, no, it was definitely bold. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts you have before we kick the season off a week from Thursday?
It's football time.
It's football time. And many of y'all are going to be doing your fantasy football drafts either this weekend, you did them, or you're going to be doing them next week. You can send in your team if you'd like us to take a look at it. Tubby's been an excellent manager or commissioner. That's the right word, commissioner. But he's been just he's got a lot of fantasy football knowledge, and I dabble as well. I try to dominate too here and there. And so we're going to talk about it next week. It's fantasy draft season. So we're going to break down a couple drafts, couple teams, just have some fun. And these are two very different drafts. One, I think I told you about it, is like it's a super flex with 3 IDPs, 2 starting kicker. I mean, it's wild. So, and the other one is more of a traditional 3 wide receivers, PPR, that kind of thing. But it's going to be a fun time, so you don't want to miss it. That's why the W Sports Podcast originated. It's fantasy draft. Just want to break it down.
It was.
We'll do that, and then after that, the second week of September, we're going to be adjusting our schedule. So you don't want to miss it. We're going to be tweaking it to be 4 episodes per week. And you're like, James, Tubby, I don't got 4 hours, guys. Don't worry. We don't either. We're going to break it up into some quick, almost like daily type episodes where it's 10 minutes long, and we're breaking down the weekend from college to the NFL to predicting weekend games. It's going to be a little bit more involved, a little bit more fun, and we want you to be a part of it. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Plus, we're going to have giveaways, I believe, starting in September. So if you didn't already know that, make sure you subscribe, because that's going to be one of the criteria. So that's what I got. Thank you all for joining us today, and we can't wait to see you all next week.
See ya.
See you.